Alright, hello everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Kaiju Critique, where I'll be analyzing various giant monster films and talking about what I feel like they got right and what I feel like they could have done better. Today we'll be talking about the 2014 Godzilla, the American reboot slash remake, whatever you want to call it, of the original 1954 movie, Gojira. So first off, let's talk about what they did right, in my opinion, of course. The design for Godzilla, pretty right on. Pretty much right on. Certain things I probably would have done slightly differently in terms of he had much more, animalistic look to him. I didn't feel watching the movie. I didn't feel like he was as much of a character or rather than just a big giant monster. In the original Japanese movies, particularly in the Heisei series, which is the movies made throughout the 80s and the 90s, it was very clear that Godzilla had a character. He had feelings, he had emotions, and none of that really seemed present in this movie. He was basically just there to destroy the monsters who were a threat to mankind, and that kind of bothered me. It felt very cheap in that way. I didn't feel like I was getting the full Godzilla experience, which probably is a pretty good summing up the entire film. It looked like Godzilla, but the film did not act like a Godzilla movie. So other things I think they got right, the third act was amazing, which basically starts once Ford, who's the American soldier, ends up with the team that sort of, I guess, parachutes down to San Francisco to find the nuclear warhead, and disarm it. That's basically, from that point on, the movie is not perfect, but very entertaining. Pretty much exactly what I would have hoped to see from this movie when I first heard they were making it. Unfortunately, the other 2/3 of the movie might as well not have even been there, because I now might as well jump into what they got wrong, because I feel like they got a lot more wrong in this movie than they got right. For starters, make a Godzilla movie, show Godzilla. At this point, it makes no sense why they would not do that. I mean, who doesn't know what Godzilla looks like? Who doesn't know what Godzilla does? What Godzilla is? I mean, I've been watching Godzilla movies for 20 years. I know what Godzilla is. Why hide him from me? And it didn't even feel so much like they were hiding him, like they did with the Cloverfield monster in Cloverfield, for example. It was more like they were just constantly teasing you. They would show Godzilla. They showed him probably about a half hour into the movie, I'd say. Maybe more like 40 minutes. I don't remember exactly. But then it's like just fleeting glances. I remember there's a scene when they're in Hawaii, and I'm not going to talk about the entire plot, because in case someone hasn't seen the movie, I don't want to spoil the whole thing for you. But I guess I could real quick give you a quick rundown of what the major overarching plot is. So basically the main plot is it actually mostly centers around the other monsters, which they refer to them as Muto. It was an abbreviation for something. I don't even remember what it was now. I didn't really care for them. Anyway, it's mostly about them. There's a male and a female who are trying to reunite, and for some reason they feed on radiation. Explain that one to me real quick. How does that make sense? But they feed on radiation, trying to get in contact with each other, essentially to breed, and then release little mutos all around over the world, who I guess will kill mankind or whatever. And all you really need to know is that's what's going on. And then it's for the most part, this story is just about this one soldier dude. His name was Ford, who kind of gets caught up in everything. Like, why we're following him never really makes any sense. His father's the one that actually should be the main character, since he's the one who is a far better actor and more interesting character, and is really the one who kind of unearthed everything that was going on to begin with. The main character doesn't really do anything, especially early on in the movie. He has no purpose early on in the movie until his father. Well, here's a quick spoiler alert, just so you know. Till his father dies, and then he's kind of thrust into just having to take his father's place in terms of being the central driving force of the story. Even though I don't feel like he really has any right to be, because he's just not important, and you don't care, personally anyways. I didn't care about his story at all. And then his wife was a character in the story. I use the term character very loosely for her because she did absolutely nothing. I kept waiting for her to do something, but it just never happened, which was really unfortunate. But so that's the main part of the story. And then, these two monsters are trying to reunite. And then Ken Watanabe, his character basically is a scientist who was studying Godzilla since way before, something like that, I think. And then he's basically, his theory is that Godzilla will find those things and destroy them. Simple enough, right? But the problem with that is, one, Godzilla doesn't ever feel like the central part of the story. In fact, he's never the central part of the story. For the most part, it seems like it's following this, soldier guy who again, it's like, why do we care about him? It doesn't make sense. Or it follows these Muto creatures, which, yeah, they were monsters, they were kaiju, they were kind of cool, I guess. I wasn't interested in them, because it would have been different if I went and saw a movie called Muto and I was watching a movie about them, but I went to see I was watching a Godzilla movie, so I expected to see Godzilla. That was the point. So that's where I really feel like they went wrong. And it's like, especially your points, there were several, I think there was twice they did this. Yeah, it was twice, where you see literally Muto about to battle with Godzilla, and then it just switches to another scene. The second time I did it, I was actually seriously getting angry. Not angry, but just like frustrated. It's like, you show me what I want to see, but then you go away from it before I'm actually able to see anything happen. It can't be the one who thinks that way. It was just super frustrating just for them to do that, and I don't understand really what their motivation for doing so was. It was almost like I felt like I was sitting in a room watching a movie I had no interest in, and then in the next room over, people were watching a movie that sounded way more exciting, and I was way more interested in watching that, but I was stuck in this other room because they kept bringing me to these other characters that I didn't care about, when really all I wanted to see was Godzilla do what Godzilla does. So that was really frustrating. Another thing that was annoying was that just sort of blatant disregard for the significance of the original film and what it meant to Japanese people, and just sort of knowledge of radiation and nuclear weapons in general. The original Godzilla is just a metaphor for the nuclear bomb. And in this movie, is like, it treated radiation and, nuclear weapons like they were nothing. They literally use nuclear warheads to lure these Muto monsters where they want them to go. Or that was the theory anyways. They tried to do that. Like, they kind of made a half-hearted attempt, like Ken Watanabe's character, to talk about the the nuclear bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but it just felt so forced. There was nothing, there was no substance to it, because the entire movie just disregarded the fact that Godzilla is so rooted in nuclear weapons and the consequences of those weapons. It just had nothing to do with them. And then these Muto creatures fed on radiation, which, how do you don't, I don't understand if they absorbed it somehow, but they literally fed on, like, they just grabbed these warheads and then ate them. That doesn't even, I don't even know how they wrap their head around how that would make sense, but whatever. So that was annoying to me. Like, it felt like it was kind of disregarding the importance of the original film in that way. Especially because Godzilla in that movie they didn't talk about his origin, other than the fact that he was just sort of always there. Seemed more what they were, like, they kind of just made it like, oh yeah, Godzilla's there, of course he's there. But it's like, you didn't talk about why he's there, how he's there. So didn't make any connection to him with the nuclear weapons of any kind. So makes no sense why, for one, why he's an atomic blast if he's not radioactive. And it made it pretty clear that he wasn't radioactive, which is weird because in every other Godzilla movie ever made, it is stated that Godzilla is radioactive. So that was another thing that kind of got on my nerves a little bit, but I could have overlooked it had the movie not had so many other mistakes. I'm not the only person who's doing this, but when you compare it to the 1998 Godzilla movie, which most people didn't like, I think I'm a rare exception of someone who actually did enjoy that movie. I actually feel like they could have taken more from that movie. In a way, and what I mean by that is everything that movie got right, this movie got wrong. I mean, that movie didn't hesitate to show Godzilla. They didn't hesitate to actually give him an origin story and to talk about that significance of radiation and, you know, why it's such a important part of what Godzilla is. And they didn't do that at all in this movie. So it's like, I feel like both movies, it's like America just can't make a Godzilla movie because both movies got things wrong, and yet none of them got the same things right, it seemed, if that makes sense. Another thing that was really strange was that there's a point where the nuclear warhead actually goes off, and and it's not even that far off from the city of San Francisco, which kind of makes you wonder why. I mean, that would have a major effect on the city, on all the wildlife, on everything in that area. And yet I believe, I could be wrong on this, I remember them saying something about the warhead itself being, because it detonated, but I remember them saying something about the warhead not having radiation in it or something like that. But if that were the case, one, why would those Muto things be after it? Because they clearly fed on radiation. And why, by it going, how did it still detonate without? I mean, I'm not an expert on nuclear warheads, but that whole element made no sense to me. How it could go off and not have any major effects on anything else. So it seemed like, because it was like no big deal is what they treated it as. As another thing that was just ties into the fact that they just seem to be a blatant disregard and also a blatant just lack of knowledge of radiation and its true effects and everything. I don't understand that, whether it was just a choice, they just assumed people wouldn't ask questions, wouldn't know anything about it, and maybe they're right, or if it was just literally they're not going to take the time to learn enough to actually give us the basic elements of what radiation does and its effects on the environment and humans and everything else. But getting back real quick to what this movie does do right is the final battle between Godzilla and the two Muto is phenomenal. I mean, it was exactly what I wanted to see. You know, it's exactly what the entire movie should have been, is just those type of moments. I mean, particularly the moment, probably my favorite moment in the entire movie is the scene during the fight in San Francisco where Godzilla first uses his atomic blast, and that scene is just excellent. The only problem I did have with that scene though is I didn't like the atomic blast itself. Felt a little lackluster. It seemed like it was too small. Like it should have been. If you look at the older, actual Godzilla movies, made in Japan, particularly the ones in the 90s and then early 2000s. I mean, the atomic blast was just, you could just see kind of the power behind it and everything, and it just didn't have that same effect in this movie. I think they were kind of trying to make it more of an homage to the original one, where it was more like smoke, because it seemed to have a very smoky look to it, rather than like an actual blast. Maybe that's part of why it looked that way, but that's more of a personal taste thing than anything. But that scene, that whole sequence with Godzilla fighting the Muto was awesome. It was so short. There was so little to. I remember when the movie ended, I'm like, the movie felt like it just started, because the first 2/3 of the movie didn't even need to be there for the most part. So that was really kind of frustrating. And it does anyway give me high hopes for the sequels, because I know they are going to make 2 sequels to this movie. If they can do more of that in those next 2 movies, then they should be awesome. But because this movie, they really failed to deliver, where every other Godzilla movie pretty much ever made has delivered, that it really kind of, it didn't, it fell short for me. There's no way I can ever really love this movie because it isn't at its core what a Godzilla movie should be, in my opinion. So in final thoughts, it's not a horrible movie, in my opinion. Not a horrible kaiju movie. It does some things right, does some things wrong. I think more wrong than right, but that's just my opinion. I actually didn't even see this movie in the theater. It took me a while. I didn't see this movie till this year, in fact, because family members of mine saw it and they told me that they barely show Godzilla. He's hardly even in it until the end of the movie, and that was exactly what I was afraid of, and it just completely turned me off. I was like, I don't even want to see it now. Eventually did see it, and I don't regret seeing it, obviously. That third act is just awesome, but for the most part, the movie just didn't do it for me. So if you're into Godzilla movies, definitely see it, because even just for that third act alone, it's worth it. But there's definitely better Godzilla movies out there by far. If you're just into special effects, yeah, this one's gonna have the best special effects because it's the newest one. It's a Hollywood movie. That's the way it goes. But for me, I don't watch Godzilla movies for special effects. That should be pretty obvious since most Godzilla movies do not have the best special effects. I watch them to see Godzilla and to see Kaiju and the awesome battles they have, and because I just love that genre. And to me, this movie didn't really do justice to what that genres are really about. But who knows? Hopefully the sequels are better. I'm certainly hoping so. I definitely will see them because, like I said, that third act just gave me a lot of hope for those ones. So we'll see what happens. But that's about it, guys. I'd love to hear your opinions in the comments, whether you like this movie. Do you think it's the best Godzilla movie ever made? Do you think it's the worst Godzilla movie ever made? Are you excited for the sequels? All of that. Are you excited for the 2016 Godzilla movie that's being actually made in Japan, called Godzilla Resurgence? That movie, I don't want to talk about too much now because it's not really what this video is about, but I am so excited for that movie. The trailer came out recently. It looks absolutely amazing. But yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. Like I said, leave your comments and your opinions down below. I'd love to hear them, and I'll see you all in the next one.